Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Many of the Michigan fans who've been rocking with the fellas, the last couple of weeks and months know that Colston Loveland, in my mind, not only the best tight end in the country heading into 2024, I think, quite frankly, he's one of the best players in all of college football heading into 2024. And I want to take a deep dive into Colston Loveland and not only what makes him so special at the tight end position, but I think more importantly, what makes him so important to this Michigan offense. And with all the chatter around the Michigan wide receiver room and all the question marks we have at the position group, I think a lot of Michigan fans are sitting back and saying, hey, over the last couple of years, we've seen this Michigan passing attack really run through the tight end position. Guys like Eric Aller, Schooner, AJ Barner, and Colston Loveland's different. This is a guy that you can truly run a passing attack through. I think for Michigan fans, we kind of all know his importance heading into 2024. Want to take a look into the film and talk about what makes Colston Loveland so special within this Michigan offense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Michigan fans. I can't tell you guys how much we appreciate all the support you guys have shown doing deep dives into this Michigan roster heading into 2024. As a Michigan fan myself, it's been a blast. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Colston Loveland. And before we dive into the film, I want to talk about a couple of the main components that makes Colston Loveland so important to this Michigan offense. I think it starts on those money third downs where you look at Michigan, not often in those third and long situations because of how efficient they've been on offense, but when it is, third and 4 or third and 6, and we need a pass catcher to create separation, make a play to extend a drive, the overwhelming share of targets were going to Colston Loveland because J.J. McCarthy just knew that he was going to create separation and make plays. And you take a look at what led Michigan to not only Big Ten championships, but a national championship in the 2023 season was kind of winning on those money downs. I mean, you don't win a Big Ten championship. You don't beat Ohio State. You don't win national championships if you don't make the plays on those money downs, those downs that are extending plays. Colston Loveland has been massive on third downs. We're going to see that show up on the film. I think another extremely underrated aspect to Colston Loveland's game is how explosive he is at the tight end position. I mean, this is a kid that averaged 14.5 yards per catch in the 2023 season. Find me another tight end that is averaging over 12 yards per catch. It's awfully hard to find. And so for all this conversation about Michigan getting a little bit more explosive in the passing attack, you have a tight end that's been extremely explosive as a pass catcher the last couple of seasons, specifically in that 2023 season. I think at the end of the day, what makes Colston Loveland so special is this kid's a freak show. You talk about a matchup nightmare. This is a 6'5", 250-pound tight end with a 79-inch wingspan that largely moves like a wide receiver. It is just so difficult for opposing defenses to find defensive backs that can deal with what Colston Loveland brings to the table. You start looking at the numbers, a couple other things that we absolutely love. 73% completion percentage when targeted. That's something that I just think is so important to the tight end position. When you have a tight end, you want the completion percentage to be high when they're targeted because a tight end is largely the safety blanket of the pass catchers. Colston Loveland is certainly that guy, but then also gives you that dynamic, explosive playmaking as well. 234 yards after a catch. When you get the football to Colston Loveland in space, he's extremely tough to bring down as well. Now, I want to get into the film and really dive into what makes Colston Loveland so special in this Michigan offense. And, I think it really does start with just being a matchup nightmare. You take a look at this Michigan State game where they played a phenomenal football game. Colston Loveland was just impossible for Michigan State to deal with. You take a look at this first rep. Another thing that I love about Colston Loveland's game is what he does in the red zone when, those passing windows get a little bit scrunched. Do you have a tight end that can go up and make plays even though the throwing windows might not necessarily be there? You talk about being a matchup nightmare. They're going to ask a safety to carry Colston Loveland up the seam right here, working out of the slot. The safety doesn't really stand a chance, right? You see this, not much separation being made here, but J.J. McCarthy knows if he puts it on Colston Loveland's back shoulder, just the frame that Colston Loveland has, it's going to be very difficult for defensive backs to work around that frame and go make a play. So I think every time Colston Loveland sees maybe a box safety or a nickel back working on Colston Loveland, trying to carry him up the seam, JJ knows exactly where he's going with the football. Again, not much of a throwing window there. Colston Loveland just using his big body to go make that play. And then very, very similar concept later in this Michigan State game where they're going to ask a tight end to carry Colston Loveland up the seam. And I think a lot of Michigan fans sitting here remember this play, but also just kind of know how this is going to turn out, right? First, we try to defensive back, a guy that maybe can run with Colston Loveland. Now we're going to ask Cal Halliday, solid Michigan State linebacker, to work with Colston Loveland up this seam, and there's just not a chance. I mean, you've kind of freeze-framed this there. They're even right now. J.J. McCarthy knows he's going to blow right by Cal Halliday, fits it into the tight window, makes a play for another touchdown. Michigan use Colston Loveland so much in the red zone, and because he's that matchup nightmare, has the ability to just blow by linebackers that are trying to follow him up the seam. And then if you want to put a defensive back on Colston Loveland, they're just not big and physical enough to deal with that catch radius. That's what starts in terms of what makes Colston Loveland so special. Now, the second thing I love about Colston Loveland's game is the feel. And we talk about tight ends on third downs being that safety blanket for the quarterback. Colston Loveland puts that on the film too. We talk about a 3rd and 8, end of the first quarter, working out of the slot once again. Two things that I want to see. One, Colston Loveland finding space, but I think more importantly, understanding how to be quarterback friendly. I mean, originally not really there, but he's going to run with J.J. McCarthy, who was phenomenal at extending plays all season in 2023, and just be that quarterback friendly pass catcher that's running to the open zone and being there for J.J. McCarthy. It doesn't get any easier for J.J. McCarthy, but the feel that Colston Loveland consistently has in terms of finding the voids in zone coverage, it's really high level. So not only is he impossible to deal with when you want to go man coverage on him, but now he's a tight end that knows how to operate in zone coverage as well, make himself accessible to the quarterback. I think it's absolutely massive. Take a look at another one where kind of just a little bit of a scramble drill. Again, J.J. McCarthy doing a phenomenal job extending plays. Colston Loveland, again, operating as kind of that slot wide receiver. I mean, comes open a little bit early, but J.J. McCarthy, again, doing a phenomenal job extending the play. Look at Colston Loveland. I mean, you can tell these guys have worked on this in practice. It was one of the more fun quarterback pass catcher combinations to watch because of the chemistry. J.J. McCarthy points him up the field. You kind of go back and watch this. J.J. McCarthy extending the play. Again, 3rd down play, money play. J.J. McCarthy points him up the field. Colston Loveland sees it, turns upfield, able to hit explosive play. He's obviously not getting brought down in space. Again, just a load to bring down. You love to see that as well, having that feel for the position. I think the last thing we got to talk about in terms of what makes Colston Loveland so special, and I think a lot of Michigan fans certainly understand this. If you are a tight end in this Michigan offense, you're not going to play if you can't get it done in the run blocking department. We saw Colston Loveland as an undersized true freshman tight end just be gritty in the run blocker department. Think over that last season, put on a little bit more weight, got that physicality to really where it needed to be. He became hammer in the run blocking game. And you talk about so many of these Michigan tight ends and H-backs, A.J. Barner, Colston Loveland, Max Bredesen, just being animals in the run blocking department. Colston Loveland was that guy too. How many tight ends can you be? One, just such a dynamic pass catching threat, but then also line that tight end up in line and just have them road grade. There's not many tight ends that can do it. Colston Loveland was one of those guys. Red zone situation, we're going to be in line at the end of this, at the end of the formation here. And Colston Loveland, one, just getting off the ball. This is, I believe, a 3rd-team All-Big Ten defender in Andre Carter. And Colston Loveland just getting to work, kind of paving the way for Blake Corman. I think what's so special is, all right, we get it down to the 1-yard line. You run the next play and say Colston Loveland doing the exact same thing. Inline tight end, absolutely road grading in the run blocking department. This was probably his best improvement to his game that we saw. A guy that knows how to move bodies off the line of scrimmage when he's lined up in line. It's really hard to find tight ends that can be, that much of a weapon as a pass catcher and also be a road grader in the run game. You look at Michigan, we're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets, especially if Alex Orji, regardless of who's quarterback in 2024, Michigan is going to use 2 tight ends on a lot of plays. Having a tight end that can get it done in the run blocking department and also be that wide receiver number 1 is such a massive asset. Colston Loveland is that guy. You talk about some of the most important players on this Michigan program heading into 2024. Will Johnson, Mason Graham probably get a lot of the spotlight. You make no mistake about it. Colston Loveland is one of the best tight ends that we've seen play Michigan football in a very long time. I'm fired up to see what he can do. Again, only a kid that's going into year 3. You take a look at Mason Graham, best interior defensive lineman in the country going into year 3, probably gets better. But Will Johnson, only going into year 3, the best cornerback in the country, also tight end position. Colston Loveland going into year 3, the best at his position. I can't remember the last time a college football team had bona fide, legitimate number 1 players at their position group at 3 different spots. That's what Michigan has heading into 2024. We'll cut it there again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.